And the first topic is about a little bit about myself. Over the course of the last 6 or 7 months since I came here from Germany, actually, I was on a temporary assignment there. I've had quite a few experiences, maybe not as many as all of you had with the Corvette. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself. I've learned that the Corvette people, they like to know a little bit more about the people that are building the cars. And that's what I do. So I have the responsibility for almost 1,000 people in the Corvette Assembly Plant, and that's what we're going to talk about. The second thing that we're going to talk about is what's going on in the Corvette Assembly Plant. And if you've had a chance, has anybody seen all the steel that's going up over by the assembly plant? So if you haven't, you know, there's a huge crane. You can see it if you're coming from the north, from Louisville. If you're coming from the south, from Nashville, you can almost see it. It's a huge project. And we're going to talk just a little bit about that. I've worked for GM for about 25 years. I was born, for the most part, I was born in Southern California, but my family moved a little bit. For the most part, I grew up in Iowa. So actually, I've met some people here from southern Minnesota where my parents were both from. And when I was growing up, I went to the University of Northern Iowa, and I was working at John Deere. So my dream at that point was to be responsible for building extremely slow vehicles in farm fields. And let's just say it didn't necessarily work out. It didn't work out because when I was getting ready to graduate, I had a great experience, but the agricultural industry was really, really down, and I had a chance to move to Michigan. At that point, working for GM I had really, really no idea. You know, for when you're a young kid growing up, not so much in small Iowa towns, it's not big, but it's not small. You really don't have an idea about what it takes to put a car together, all the factories that have to work together to make a product. So I was jumping into GM, and I've moved around quite a bit. In fact, you know, a couple things about myself here. I've moved physically 12 times in the 25 years I worked for GM. That's counting the first move to Michigan, then I moved to Ohio. I had a one-year assignment, actually with the United States Department of Commerce, where I spent a year in Japan. I came back to Ohio. I went to New York to learn about some new technology for a year. I came back, and then I went to Michigan, moved around a little bit there, ended up going to Germany, and now I'm in Bowling Green. And honestly, when I look back at it, for all of us that have had you know, some type of a professional career, 25 years has just gone by just like that. And honestly, it's a huge honor to you know, to have the chance to be in the Corvette plant. Probably the best manufacturing job that we have in the company. So that's what I got. That's my life. And I get to go to the factory every day. You guys do it maybe once a year. So, nana nana, boo-boo. All right, so I talked a little bit about that. I've got some pictures. I'm a car guy. So when I was growing up, I'm not a car guy because I work in the Corvette plant. I'm not a car guy because I worked in a different, you know, powertrain plant. I'm a car guy because when I was a kid, that's all I dreamed about. And that's what I spent all my time and money doing when I was growing up. So it was kind of a little bit of an obsession. So to find myself here is actually also really, really cool. And I actually, you know, Tanya Johnson, who I work with, she's my admin, which I refer to as the other side of the brain that I don't necessarily use so much. She has exhibited an unbelievable amount of peer pressure for me to pull out old pictures, thinking that you might be interested in that. So if you're not interested, it's her fault. But I think, okay, so see, that's my way of sharing credit. But I think that you will. But you know, for me, I just love cars. I've got a wife. She actually works for GM too. So we've moved around together a number of times. She's an engineer, and I've got 2 kids, 16-year-old daughter, which is a handful, maybe like a Z06, and then I've got a boy who's 13, and they're both great. The kids are, and my wife. And you know, from that I'm in it for the long haul. I can say truly that I've worked in manufacturing, like I said, for 25 years with GM. I worked for John Deere as a student for 3 years, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else. You know, for me, it truly is, it's the natural habitat, and it really doesn't matter what I'm doing. I've worked in the Corvette plant for a few months now, but I've worked in engine plants, I've worked in component plants, I've done a lot of different things. And one thing's for sure, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, you meet cool people, and you find ways to get things done. And with the Corvette, it's super special because you have a chance to meet the individuals like yourself, which are, you know, people that truly love the car, and make some neat connections that way. So, a little bit about, this is what Tanya did to me also. So I'm a victim. But she actually conspired with my wife a little bit to come up with a list of some of the things that about Kai, right? First of all, I'm not going to read these all to you, but the first one, if you're wondering Kai, I said that both my parents grew up in southern Minnesota. I'm the direct descendant of Norwegian immigrants, my great-great-grandparents, and until I met my wife, I was this purebred Norwegian immigrant, and then she wrecked it all for my kids, but I love her nonetheless. And Kai is kind of a Norwegian name. Spending time in Germany, you'll see Kai also in German, and while I was living there, it was the biggest international trick to have a name like Kai because they automatically assumed I spoke perfect German, which was totally not the case. Let's just say that in your mid-40s, that is not the time to learn a new language, but nonetheless, it worked out. A couple other things, you know, number 3 there, my hobbies. What do I spend my time doing? Every weekend, when I have time, I'm in the garage, and I've got just projects. I love tinkering. I love power sports. I love snowmobiling. I've had jet skis. Recently just purchased a boat. I love all that stuff, and I love it because I can do it with my family and the like. So I love that stuff. What else in here? While I was in Japan, I climbed to the top of Mount Fuji. Not only climbed to the top of Mount Fuji, I did it in the dark so that I could watch the sunrise. And watching the sunrise from Mount Fuji's, you know, kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And ironically, the Japanese, they have a lot of proverbs. One of their proverbs is, "It is a fool that does not climb Mount Fuji, and it's a fool who climbs Mount Fuji twice." So I will not be the fool in that regard. And I'll tell you, climbing, the idea with your buddies to climb Mount Fuji in the dark, let's just say there was maybe one too many beer involved in that plan, but we did it, and we saw the sunrise. What about a couple other things? I don't know. Number 12, I can't stand it when, from a business standpoint, I'm not necessarily a super impatient person, but it's part of manufacturing. You're on time, you do what you need to do, and I have this unbelievable pursuit for perfection. So, you know, everything can always be improved. At least that's what my wife always tells me. So, what would be the last thing that we go through here? Yep, probably the number 20 there. I do truly have a passion for people, our products, and on our projects. I've got quite a history of working on capital projects, and if you know, or big, large projects measured with hundreds of millions of dollars. The paint shop that we have is over almost $440 million. And you only get those kinds of projects done when you have the ability to work with and around people. And that's really, really fun. I truly enjoy that. Okay, so let's keep going. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So, old cars. And this is like 1977 Monza, produced, you know, and I bought this car, I think it was 1986, 4-cylinder, gone, 350 in, and blew up the transmission because I kept it from the 4-cylinder because I didn't have any money. Then an automatic 3-speed turbo, 350, and that was, I always kind of had these bragging rights. I always had the fastest car in the high school. Okay, then I crashed that one. So I moved over to 2.0, which was this Monte Carlo. And that car, you know, for For the day, it was, in my opinion, even better than the Monza. You know, I personally did the engine rebuild, a 400, bored out to a 406, and it was easily over 500 horsepower. 273 gear rear end, and at 60 miles an hour, it'd spin the tires. It was cool. So I love that. And then this one in the middle, down at the bottom, that was the first car. When I got a chance to work for GM, I happened to be, just because I was, you know, I didn't have a lot of money, I bought a Ford Ranger that had been kind of crashed and put back together. It was transportation, and when I started working for GM after about a year, I had saved up enough money. I didn't go buy a new GM car. I went out and bought that 1978 L78 silver anniversary Corvette because I had these other two, and I loved it, and it was silver, which was also cool. And that was the start for me with Corvettes. That was probably 1993, year and a half after I started working for GM. So that's cars, and then this came along. This was the mid-year that I had in 1965. And you see, this is actually a legit, you can't really see it the way the picture is perfect up here. That's actually a Polaroid picture of bringing that car home. And I mean, it was a basket case. And I don't know, you know, I think I was probably 27 or 28 years old, and I thought, what I need to do is do a frame-off restoration on a mid-year. And there's a reason that when you're young, you do stupid things, because I learned a lot. But I'll tell you, it was a month of Sundays trying to get that thing done. But I can proudly say that I did it all myself, with the exception of the paint. And actually, it's cut off, but on this top right picture, what you can't see is you can see the engine hoist at the bottom, but the method that I devised to get that body off the chassis in my garage with stuff from the local lumber yard, let's just say, wouldn't pass my safety standards now, and I wouldn't get under that thing for $1 million, but nonetheless, I figured out a way to do it. And actually, when I pulled these pictures out, because I hadn't seen them for a long time, I saw that picture in the middle, and this was me getting, if anybody's used or has had a mid-year Corvette, and they had headlights that actually worked, you know, raise your hand. And now, if you had them that worked, and you had paid like $2,000 to make them work, raise your hand again. Because it's either one or the other. And I was trying to get the things to work so that when it was painted, it would go back together. And I was there where I totally shouldn't be, because I have what I fondly refer to, turned my right knee into a flamingo mode, terribly hyperextending it, and it was a really nasty accident. But there was nothing that was going to keep me from working on the car, so that's what I did. So you can see my knee brace, and it's all wrapped up. And bad idea at the time, but I look back and I said, man, that was really stupid to be there doing that. And I did it anyway. And I had this car for the most part in Ohio, and I moved to New York, and I told the plant manager then, I said, I'll go do this assignment in New York, but my car's almost done, and I need to bring it up. It doesn't run at all. And I can't just put it on a trailer. It needs to go in an enclosed trailer. It was painted at the time, but I had to get it running. And he agreed, because he was kind of a car guy too. He said, the company will pay to move your car. It wasn't a tremendous amount of money. So this was actually up in our backyard in the home that my wife and we had no children at the time, in our backyard right on the St. Lawrence River. So this is the 2 days in the summer where there's actually green things. And on the other side of that river, that's Canada, and it was great for those 2 days. And if you guys remember in 1999, the huge ice storm that went through, that's where I was. This was like a little island where it was mostly summer homes, and I went outside and you could just hear the cracking sound of trees falling all over the place. Power was out, and let's just say I wasn't on the top of the list to get power, so my wife and it was camping. We lived for, I think it was 8.5 days with no power. So, anyway, but that was a cool car. And now somebody has to ask me the question, well, was it an original big block, side pipe, convertible? Anybody curious? Well, I mean, there's certain places where cars always go in as a small block and they all come out a big block, and that was my garage because I thought big blocks were cool. And, of course, a 65 should have a 396 in it. Kind of hard to come by. And there's no replacement for displacement, so it was a 454 that was in that one. And it went pretty good. Actually, we had at the plant I was working in, this, again, it was 1999, which was, right about the time the C5 was coming out. We brought one up from downstate New York for a little plant event. And everybody said, Kai, you got to bring your car to the plant. We'll put that one next to this one. They were both red. They were both convertibles. And I said, oh, okay. And I did that. And then I worked out a deal with that plant manager. I said, well, you got to bring this car back to, southern New York. And we had another company car waiting there, so it was kind of drive down and drive back. And I got the opportunity to do that. It was a beautiful summer day. And I took this car home, and if you've ever been in a big block side pipe car, you always like them to be convertibles because in a coupe it's really loud. And I got in that C5, and I will never forget the day where I thought, in the morning that this was a badass car. And then I got in that C5, and I thought, okay, so it's really loud and not very fast. It's still cool, but compared to the C5, it was just awesome to drive that down to southern New York. Anyway, enough about cars. And then this was actually in Ohio, where this was maybe at the peak for Corvettes for me. The blue one, that's a legit purchased in Chicago. This was before Craigslist. Before all of that, it's when you actually could look in a newspaper and find stuff. I was visiting my brother in Chicago, and this car was advertised, big block, 69. Anyway, I called the guy, and he said, yeah, it's probably not too special, no options. It's got an aftermarket 4-barrel on it, blah, blah, blah. I went and saw it, and, you can guess what it could have been and what I thought it was. I pulled the tank sticker out of it. It was a 435 horse, L71, 4-speed, 411. It had side pipes originally. Somebody had taken them off, and it was blue on black, or black on blue, and it was a great car. I had that for a period of time, and it only had 54,000 miles on it. So that was those four. About a year after that, actually, when we came back from New York, I did have a 1999, and this is kind of a joke. I think I told you I have a daughter. She's 16. She's almost 17 now. And if you do the math, what year is it this year? Minus her age is the year that I had my last Corvette, the new one. And anyway, between then there was I had a 67 GTO and a number of other things. But my passion for cars didn't go away. And actually, I spent 10 years putting this thing together. Another basket case from a town not too far from me, from my hometown in Iowa. I found this thing, and it was in need of a lot of work. It took me 10 years to do this, and I'm proud to say that this car was put together, with the exception of the paint, which is another story. But I did all the work myself. The mechanical work, rebuilding the engine, transmission. All the wiring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and all the modifications. I could walk you around this if you would be curious, and we could spend the day looking at all the things that have been touched. Because these cars, as you know, they were not designed to look good. They were designed just to move stuff around, and this one looks pretty good now. So, anyway, and this one is the only one that I still have. All the other ones, I found that I love working on them. I love the cars. I'll never sell this one, which is what I'm saying now, and I guess I'm on film, so this might come back. But I spent 10 years working on this one, and I have pictures with my little kids out, and they saw the genesis of this thing moving up. And like I said, it took me 10 years because of a number of things that were going on. But I think that you all get those connections when you have, your family members that you love, and they have a part of that. So, 1937 Chevy pickup truck. And then just a couple, I can't go on without talking just a little bit about my family. In Germany, we had a chance to travel quite a bit. So these are just some snapshots that we had. This picture over on the right, I looked at it and I said, isn't that just perfect, right? 2 teenagers sitting there in front of Stonehenge with a phone, It's like probably texting something to one another, and at least they're pretending that they're looking at one of the most, epic views maybe in the world, and just some pictures. So yeah, Rome, and we had a chance to travel. It's so cool to be in Europe because everything's so close. I mean, probably in this room, everybody traveled maybe 3, 4, 5, 600, a couple thousand miles. If you travel that far in Europe, you can, you're almost be in Russia. You can go to see anything. And we did, so we took an opportunity to do that. And then you can see my wife, and again, my little rock star wannabe daughter there with her sunglasses on. So anyway, that's kind of what I had prepared about myself. And like I said, it was a little bit, I don't know if that's what people were interested in, but since at least I didn't pay to come in here, and I'm not getting paid, that's what you get. And if you ever do get to know me, usually you'll find that whatever I'm thinking, I'm saying, so pardon me for that. I'm glad that you laughed when I said that. Okay, who may have a question? And I do say that we're going to have some stuff about the plant, which will come up next, but I can entertain any question. There's one right here. The question was, what will the weather be like tomorrow? And the answer is chance of sun and a possibility of rain on Saturday. Yeah, no, seriously, the question was, would you be willing to put your job on the line to tell a group of strangers something that's totally top secret from a company standpoint? And I joke about it a little bit playful, but it was about what would be the future, of the Corvette. And obviously, I'm not here to talk about that. I can't. I would say that, and this is public information. It is part of what I have prepared to talk about regarding what's going on in the plant. And since you asked, I almost prefer the question and answer. And if we don't get to this other presentation, just listening to me talk, that's totally cool with me. We announced earlier this year that we would have a $44 million investment in the PBC, or the Performance Build Center, in Bowling Green. So, this is the fact that we are going to invest quite a bit of money into some new product stuff for our PBC, which is of course where we do our hand-built engines. Now, I joke with a lot of people a lot of times. In fact, I use this with my assistant plant manager, Nora Roper, who I've known for quite a while. I asked her, how do you keep an assistant plant manager in suspense? I'll tell you tomorrow. And so while there's an investment, I can't tell you for what. So how do you keep an audience in suspense? Tell you that you have a big investment and not be able to talk about what it is. So anyway, you guys are all smart. You guys could stand up here and talk about what it could be. Another question?
Possibly a midship Corvette in the near future.
So he wants to ask about the weather for tomorrow again, or next week. And so he's talking about, okay, what about a mid-engine car? And again, I have to be a little bit playful, yet kind of serious. I can't talk about that. You guys are trying, for crying out loud, I'm on camera. I got bosses too, right? I told you, go back 4 slides. I'm in it for the long haul, and you guys are trying to snip me off. It's like, love you, Kai. Next. Yeah, what over here?
I understand the factory is working on taking steps to eliminate the possibility of orange peel on the paint.
Yep. The question, just to repeat it, is in and around orange peel. And actually, if you would talk to any of our paint professionals, it's like the worst word. It's like a F-bomb, right? But the fact of the matter is that you will not find any paint job anywhere that doesn't have some level of orange peel, or waviness might be a better word. The issue is, quite honestly, and this again is getting into some of the other material that I have to talk about the new paint shop and what it will do for customers and what it will do for the company, which is the environment also. So I'm segueing in here, and trust me, I will get to your question. The challenge with painting a Corvette that is unlike any other metal-bodied car is that you can't use electrostatic energy to help attract the paint to the panels. That's number one. Number two, we paint, you guys may or may not know this, all the panels are painted off the car. So that's another level of complexity. So what we have as a challenge is extremely unique. And the paint shop that we're going to put in place is going to help address some of those extremely unique challenges. It is a fact that composite panels, be it carbon fiber or some type of plastic in the end, they do not like to be painted. Go try and paint one of them, and you'll find out. And they don't like to be painted, and they don't like vertical surfaces because the paint will start to run. And so every time it's like a box of you have a process, and it doesn't like to be painted on the horizontal surfaces or the vertical surfaces. It doesn't like to have a thick layer of paint put down. It doesn't like layer after layer. There's all of these challenges. Okay, so these are the birthing pains of the paint process, but nonetheless, what are we doing to make it better? And when you have the panels that we have with the Corvette, there's only one solution. You need to slow down. You need to slow the paint process down. And you need to apply things much slower, and you need to take extra time and extra care. And to be very, very honest, the knobs that we have to turn with regard to slowing things down, we can always find ways to make improvements. We've changed some panel material just earlier or late last year. Took some weight out of the car. It had a commensurate improvement in our paint finish. And we've tried to slow things down, but we're kind of reaching to the end. So we have this game changer where we're putting in this new paint shop. And one of the reasons why, when you look at this paint shop, and if you have driven by, or if you will drive by, you will see, and I've got some pictures I'll show you, it's huge. Because all the ovens that we have, the other thing that I need to say from a process standpoint, these plastic panels and carbon fiber panels, they hate heat. So they're made with chemicals. And when you heat those things up, the chemicals that are in them, it's phase transformation, right? Physics 101, solid to a liquid to a gas. Solid to a liquid to a gas. When it gets to the gas, it expands like 10,000 times. Water, as an example, going to steam. If you have one of these panels and you heat them up, and there's something in the panel, because the paint loves heat, you can throw them, you heat the hell out of them. But if you do that with a plastic panel, something that's in there will come out, it'll erupt underneath the paint, and it'll cause a paint defect. So that's another one. So we need to paint slower, we need to cure the paint slower, which means longer ovens, which means lower temperatures, which means we're inventing paint technology also to do that. A clay bar is your friend, and honestly, it's the physics. It's the physics, and I'm not saying that we're not constantly trying to make improvements, but we have physics to deal with, and we've made it. In the last couple of years, I won't be able to take credit for it. Our paint manager, Chuck Valentini, has done an unbelievably good job, and for those of you who have read, Ask Taj on some of the forums, his response. I would tell you, and he would tell you also, a lot of that came from our manager, Chuck Valentini, who you can probably find around here in the next couple of days. Yes. That was a long answer, but I feel like I got to give you the background. It's not just okay to give you the short answer. Yes? It should, in every case, make the paint more durable. And, you know, for the fascias, they're also another different material. And so, yes, when you cure things slower, the chemistry, everything happens slower, and it should also be more durable. We've done some pilot work with regard to the new paint process, meaning slower temperature and application. We're doing that work up in Michigan. And what we see so far, the panels look really, really good right out of the box, you know, so to speak, without any extra massaging. Yeah. Because what I think sometimes, you know, and again, I say this very openly, because again, it's the only way that I know how to run the business. The expectation that you have a wavy-free panel, it won't happen. If you want that, you're going to, you know, you're talking about a $10,000 paint job that looks like that, right? I mean, that paint job is tens of hours, probably 100 hours of sanding after the paint was on it. It's perfect. I mean, you can read a newspaper in it. Yes, sir. Mike, right?
You're out 50, you're out 71 Corvette, 69 is just beautiful. It looked, though, tell me if it was an optical illusion, it looks to have an L88 hood.
It did have an L88 hood because the guy who had it before me, he didn't know that it was originally a tri-power car. It had a 4-barrel on it, and that's what happened back then, right? People couldn't tune the tri-power, zip, put on a 4-barrel, boom, hood won't close. So it had an L88 hood. I got the correct hood, and actually, the name escapes me. There's a shop on Long Island, this guy that does the see-through Corvette. Somebody knows who I'm talking about. The L80, he owns a lot of the L88 cars. Corvette repair. And he's done like these the transparent Corvette. His shop actually bought that car because I had the tank sticker and it had what else fails on the mid-years in those cars? Right in front of the rear wheel, it always rusts out. This car was perfect. So it was worth for him to buy. Yeah, but you're right, good catch. It wasn't an L7100. Yes?
Hey, Kai, having spent time in the old St. Louis plant, watching them paint cars there in the same ovens in which the operators would put their lunch to warm up for lunchtime, you know, we have come a long, long way. This car, for its price, for its complexity, you know, this is probably as close to a hand-built car as you can get in terms of quality level, fit and finish. And I applaud you guys because we look at this as a volume sports car, not a 2,000 or 3,000 unit a year car. And I'm just impressed every day I go out and look at my 16 and how good that car looks compared to my original paint 73. You've come a long, long way here. You built a great car.
I appreciate that. We didn't plant him in the audience here, by the way. But if anybody else has any of those things, like, I take those all day long. And I would say that, you know, with all joking aside, you know, when you make things, it's all about the processes and, you know, the ability to have an ultra clean environment. We will have, it'll be like clean room quality. And actually, the other point with regard to the new paint shop, which is of interest, we have designed in a viewing area so that when people come for tours, they can come and they'll be able to see the vehicles being painted, so color being applied as part of the tour. So again, it's you know, how to keep a group in suspense. Tell them they can watch cars be painted next year. Yes, sir.
With the new paint, are you going to be able to do more colors instead of the 10 that you do now? Will you be able to do 16 or 18?
The question is, will we have more color options with the new paint shop? And the plan right now, we're starting in 2018, so I'm gonna step back and give you a little bit more about the new paint shop. When we start that up next year, for the 2018 model year, we will start up with the new colors for 2018. Like this year, we've got 4 new colors. We've actually got cars out there now, so we're farther ahead than we have been in the past. I'm proud that we have cars, not panels, to show you. We will start up the shop with the new colors. And then the legacy colors will stay in the old shop until we get the new ones up and where we need them. And then we'll start scooping them into the new shop. The technology that we'll have in the new shop will be more flexible so that we can switch over quicker. But the plan right now is to keep the 10, although we could add, whenever we do a project like this, a lot of times we'll put in what we call white space. So, you know, if you needed more paint stations, and we don't need more robots, because these things will go, they'll do a blue one, a white one. We don't do white after red, because sometimes that makes pink, but we have the ability to do car after car different colors. So we switch over, and the paint equipment doesn't matter, it's just getting the paint to it. And we'll have the ability where we could expand that. The question is, you know, how many colors, you know, if it's, you know, Baskin-Robbins still sells the same amount of ice cream at the end of the day, maybe, no matter how many they have. And so it's a balance. It's kind of a business decision. But just let me tell you, I don't know if Harlan's in the room, but he is, oh God. God bless Harlan, the master of disaster. What we want to do is this. It's like, and it's all for the right reason, and we do everything that we can, and we have that possibility. Yeah. Harlan, did I miss anything on that? How many colors? Well, let's just do it like this. How many colors do you want? You can't have that many. You get 10. 31. Yeah, he wants Superman and bubblegum. So we have a little bit of fun with that. Yeah, you have a question?
I was more interested in you a little bit about how you got this job. You said this is the best manufacturing job in the company. So that must mean there's a lot of people that would like to have it.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in how you came to get it. I'm also interested in what it takes for you to say that you're going to be here for a long time. What parameters do you have in your own mind about staying here?
That's a very complex statistical problem. In all seriousness. So for everybody that would hear the question, how did you get this job? And I would tell you also, I have a point in my personality of a little bit of humor, and at the same time I have a very strong, maybe it's because I grew up in Iowa, I'm a pretty humble guy. You know, for me to stand up here and to pull these pictures out, the reason I was joking about, you know, Tanya, who encouraged me to do that, because it's not so natural that I would talk about myself. But ask, and I will give you the answer. I spend, maybe it's just, again, the way I was brought up. I spend more time working with my people and the processes in the plants that I've been in, which is a lot. And I'm aware, but I don't spend time looking to my boss and looking to the next job. I just put my head down and I go forward. I would also tell you, for me to take the time to come over here, I enjoy it, believe me. You guys saw the cars that I have. I love the car and I love talking about it. You know, if you want to talk about powertrain, piston, bore, wall, clearance, supercharger, I can do that all day. I love it. But I get so ingrained in what's going on in the plant, and I love it. I spent the time yesterday morning working the line. I was installing carpet with the operators and doing the job in the rear wheel well, you know, putting parts in, and I had, that for me was fun. And it's maybe just who I am. And then in the weekend, I like doing the stuff personally. I love seeing how things work, and I love, it's just like a giant puzzle. And maybe that's what has given others in the company some confidence in me. But, you know, I would say I came back from Germany a year early. My boss called me on Friday night. You know, I've shared the story, so maybe you heard it. My daughter, she came out, it's like 7:30 at night, and she hands me the phone. I'm on the patio in the Frankfurt area, and I look at it, and it's my boss, and it's I'm thinking about a bratwurst on the grill with my neighbor, and dinner, and he asked me if I would come back early and come back to the Corvette plant. And so he asked. I wasn't soliciting it. I was working in product engineering over there because they needed somebody that had an operational perspective on our powertrain product engineering to run the dyno labs and make it run like a factory. So that question might be better asked to the people that have confidence in me. But me, if you ask the people around me, I just go to work and get involved and have fun with the people that I'm with. And it's work, yet you get paid for it. So
the other part is how long?
and this is going to sound a little evasive, because it is. I got a call to come here 2 years ago because somebody thought that I might be able to make a difference. I would assume. I got called to go to Germany for the same reason. I think my boss there, German guy actually, he said, I left a big footprint. I made a difference. I can't predict when that next thing is going to happen, but one of the things, I treat every job like it's my last job, period, and I just do the work. And while I'm here, I will enjoy it like crazy. Maybe you picked up on the fact, that's why I said statistics. I've been with GM 25 years, I've moved 12 times. And I did 2 to Japan and back, to New York and back. Those were 1 year, so that was 4, so that was a lot. But I've moved quite a bit. There's some power in moving a little bit for the company because you bring new ideas. So if my boss called and said, hey, would you like to go to, I don't know, some undesirable place, I'd probably say no. I'd just as soon stay here. But I've been at a number of plants. I've been a plant manager for the Romulus engine plant, which also was responsibility for Wixom. So I had the PBC there at its genesis. Saginaw, Bay City, a number of different components plants, and done a bunch of different things. So
So the reason why I asked the question is because there's a problem for the plant, I think, if the time is too short.
there is.
And you need to build some continuity into leadership to a certain extent. So
This is true. This is true. So the comment was, if you're here for too short a time, you could damage the organization. You could, potentially, right? The leadership that we have that all report to me, they have also a level of stability that's there and continuity. So we'll see.
I think it's more, instead of damaging, the benefit you can get from
That's
a
true.
little bit longer time.
Probably a little shape of a curve could be different. You already asked a question.
I did.
Okay, you can have one.
With the new paint facility and your ability to change color from car to car, will you ever get to the possibility where maybe one day a month you can run special orders? If somebody wants to pay an extra $4,000 on their sticker price, they can get a butternut yellow or a marina blue. They can just get any color they want if they're willing to wait for it and pay the extra.
There's some operational issues that go with that. This could be, Armin's back there, he's smiling. I can barely see him. He's smiling. I think you planted her up here. Right now, we don't, you guys, you may or may not know if you've been on the plant tour, we don't paint all of our parts, right? So we get, like the hood tops, the roofs, those come in, they're already painted. We get parts that are already painted from other locations, front and rear fascias.
And it'll stay that way?
Well, that's the model that we have right now. So the point is that what you're talking about wouldn't only be, and this is part of the challenge that we have with the Corvette. You get these parts that come from our process or other processes. When they go on the car, you guys can't tell. You must not be able to tell, which makes our job really hard, which makes some of the more exotic paints, with different tinting and whatnot, a real challenge. Because they have to go together and you can't tell. And so that would be a challenge. It wouldn't just be in our shop, it would be in other shops. And to do the work to get, that one-off hood to match the roof, to match the other panels, that's a ton of work. That's a ton of work to get all of those colors coordinated.
Because I don't know if they still have it, but at one time they had a C1 Corvette in the museum here. It was like, I think, one of 50 that was painted lavender for Shriners, years and years ago. So it'd be nice to be able to get back to something like
Something
that.
like that.
Not lavender.
The guy that did this truck for me can do that. It might be more than 4,000.
Right.
What else? What other questions? Yeah.
Have you ever taken that truck on a hot rod power tour?
I have not, but I was going to 3 years ago. When I was just getting this thing done, I was in Michigan. I lived in Clarkston, which is right near Pontiac. I was going to take it on the power tour because it was leaving almost right from my house. And I couldn't get it done in time, and one thing led to another. But I've had it on Woodward, on the Dream Cruise,
Yeah.
and got a lot of thumbs up from that. And this is kind of funny. People always say, well, yeah, do you bring it to car shows? And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, well, I brought it to 2 car shows, one in Romulus and one here. And I just happen to be the plant manager, and let's just say I always get best of show. I don't know how it happens. I'm just saying that. But it's good. It's a little small block in, a 700 R4, 4 9-inch independent front, Willwood discs all the way around. It's another little deal. And when I get in it, I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but it is a small truck. What else? Any other questions? Okay, so let's go on and we'll take a look at, some of these questions will go a little bit quicker because we've had a chance to talk a little bit, but paint shop project update, and then some of the other capital investments. I've already talked a little bit about what we're doing in the Performance Build Center, and then the last one I've got, it's a secret. I'll tell you later what the secret is. Okay, so this is just some trivia for you. We just started up a new paint shop in the Flint plant. Actually, Jeff LaMarche, who left here last September, he went to Flint, and he's in the process now starting that up. And with that shop going down, this shop that we have is the oldest one in our company. It's the reason that we've made this investment, and we will make the investment. And obviously, there's a number of reasons to do that. Another couple factoids. It's almost 500,000 square feet. The current plant, if you would go measure it, is almost 1 million square feet. So it's like 50% again the size of the existing factory. And the 1 million, that's the body shop. It's the whole GA, or the General Assembly. It's the existing paint shop. So it's a huge amount of space. And the question was really a good one about, what's the new shop going to do for us? We're stretching all these processes out. We're slowing it down. And by doing that, we need more space because the ovens will be at a lower temperature and they'll be longer. I already mentioned that we're going to start the facility up next year. So this time next year, we'll be getting pretty close. And our goal is to have the 2018 model year cars come out of the new factory for the new colors. And then we have a transition time frame. Okay, then the last one also. Then once we get the new colors up, and it's going to be a logistics, it'll be a real challenge, because what you guys may know, we make a body right now. That body has a VIN number on it. We put the dash in it. The VIN matches the body. That body must have a certain color. If we do all of that work and we get to the point where the color parts need to go on and the color parts aren't there, let's just say it's a problem. So it'll be a huge challenge for us. So we're spending a lot of time to make that happen. So that transition is not without risk. And now we have 2 huge material streams coming together, which makes it another challenge. Okay, so this again, in preparation for what people want to know a little bit, and I've talked a little bit already, what would be what's the benefit to paint quality for the customer? And I put this one first, and then next I'll talk a little bit about the company and what we want to do there. The bullets here. We will have FANUC is a brand name, state-of-the-art FANUC robots. And it's not so much the robots. Anybody on the planet can buy a robot. What you need to really have is you need to have all the control methodology behind it. You need to have this multi-step fluid application. Again, to the point that you said, do more times, less fluid, more time in between, and you will be able to slowly build up the paint, and you will end up with a higher quality. I feel like I'm talking to you about paint. And like I said, longer baking ovens, we optimize the paint flow and optimize the drying times. And then this last one, you can imagine in this room right now, it is totally not okay for us if we wanted to paint anything. I mean, a rattle can. You have to have a very special environment. And they're very, very, very expensive. And then when you talk about, all right, so we've got, it's not all of the 450,000 square feet, but all of the paint shop areas that where we're applying paint, it needs to be so clean. I mean, you walk over sticky stuff to pull the stuff off your shoes. You have special suits on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you've been in the plant, maybe you've seen some people in these blue coveralls. Those are to help protect anything that's on you from getting out and getting into the paint. In this facility, it'll almost be like its own city. It's not optimal that the people that come out. You really shouldn't be able to see the people that have these blue suits on in the factory, because it means they're out of the paint shop. When they come out, they can get something on them, and then they go back in. It's almost going to be like its own little city. Everything that people need is going to be in there. They can go in, they'll be clean, they'll stay clean. The facility will stay clean. So that's a huge improvement. And then, from a company standpoint, and when I say green here, I don't necessarily mean that it's going to be a reduction in the amount of energy required, but we will be putting in technology that will, instead of using water, we will have a dry system, which is a known technology that comes from Germany, from a company called Dürr. And we will, if you can just imagine grinding up limestone into a small particle, putting it into the air, when the paint that's not used gets introduced to that, it kind of globs together, and then it falls out of suspension, and we scoop that stuff up. We will save hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of gallons of water, which, from a global standpoint, we should be conserving. So we use this limestone sludge to eliminate all the watering systems. We have some electrostatic spray applicators that will help reduce our paint usage, so we use less paint to get a better product. And some smaller things, all the lights will be LED, and the ovens will be more efficient, better insulated, more modern technology. Okay, so a couple other factoids. What does it do for the local economy? So far, and we're not so far into it, about 250,000 hours, which means a lot of jobs for the local area, and we'll go up to, we're about a quarter done. And then there's a lot of local content, with the exception of some of the equipment that has to come from abroad. We're getting most of this stuff locally, which is good for Kentucky and the area. And here's some pictures. I keep walking forward there. I'm trying not to fall off. Existing facilities. So at the bottom of the screen, this is kind of some of the areas that would be the new paint shop, and then the tan part called the manifold building. That's kind of a low bay area that will be the transfer point between the new paint shop and the existing facility. So that tan area, you'll see if you go and drive by the plant, it's kind of the lower area, and then obviously the taller area is the new paint shop. And it's 450,000 square feet. It's also multiple levels, so the working level could be even more. So 56 feet tall in the main area, 28 feet, which matches the building. And to get a little idea of scale, those aren't little Lego toys there. Those are semis, and then some of the stacks. When you drive in the plant, you drive, yeah, the little road that you see on the upper right-hand side, that's the road coming in. And then just the progression, this is actually the week after, 2 weeks after I started, so September 15th of last year. Grubbing, which I'd never heard that word before here. When I say grubbing, I think, you know, it's what I go do to kill the grubs in my grass. But here it's cleaning the area, and then blasting. We were blasting since this time frame till November, 2 times a day, 12 o'clock and 5 o'clock. And that was actually, you know, interesting. As time went on, they got closer and closer to the plant. If you remember that movie, The China Syndrome, where the 3 Mile Island or whatever, the nuclear reactors kind of, the whole plant would move a little bit, which was interesting. But a lot of dynamite and a lot of movement. You can, when you drive to the plant, you can see a huge pile of tailings of stone and some dirt. That all came out to prepare the facility. And here you can see on the lower right, the far where the text is, that's where you drive in, and that will eventually be the road that you saw on the picture. And this is a tall pile of dirt that you see here, parking area for the construction guys, and then you see this big hole there. On the other side of the hole, I don't know if this thing has a laser on it or not. No, I'll probably turn it off if I push it. That's the parking area for all of the cars that are undercover, ready for shipment, so you can kind of get a scale. And that's the area in that hole that is underneath the pits. And they're the pits underneath the paint shop, because the paint has to go down. We use gravity to get it down, and then we can use that. So we had to blast all of that out. And then in the lower part of that, you can see a bunch of construction trailers. Those are all still here. So that was just late last year. And then as you progress, this was the first piece of steel right before Christmas. And then in January, in a matter of, you know, another month, we had the basement almost all concreted in. And then the steel started coming in, about 50 sticks of steel a day, sticks of steel. Kind of a tongue twister. And then the end of February, and then you can see, you know, just a couple weeks ago, where the siding is already starting to go on, and then you can see again, you know, you can see where the siding is going on, and almost connected to the existing plant. In the lower right-hand corner, you can see how the steel comes together there. So that's kind of where we are. It's a couple-week-old picture, but this is actually the use of a drone to take pictures that we like. We don't necessarily like drones that are trying to take a picture of the new Grand Sport when they're in our factory. And I'll tell you, my office, if you know where it is, it's in the front of the plant. I was looking outside once and it's like, that's a weird bird. And some guy had a drone out by the cars that are on display, and he ran the drone all the way over I-65. It was like it was on a wire. It must have been a really expensive one because it was programmed. And anyway, so we have to deal with that too. We have people that launch drones around our plant. We don't shoot them out of the sky. We have other technology. Okay, and then just a couple other notes. I talked about this, what we have is propulsion. In the company, we've officially renamed our powertrain organization Global Propulsion, because what we're working on now, and don't read into Corvette, but we do more than just powertrain. That is kind of an analogy for an internal combustion engine and transmission. We do all kinds of other technologies, so referred to as propulsion. I spent over 20 years in powertrain. I'm going to still call it powertrain for a while, but I thought I would keep everybody happy. 44 million, and that's going to be for projects that'll come in the next few years. And then the other one, this was the secret. It's really not a secret, but if you drive north on I-65 and you look to the left, right past our plant, you'll see a solar array. So we've spent a couple $1 million in a solar array. That it was some space that wasn't really used no sinkholes, so we thought we'd put some solar panels on it, and it's actually good. It's one of the biggest in the state, and it's generating energy on a daily basis now. We started that project. These things go up fast. In the early part of December, and by the middle of January, it was producing power for us. So that is officially what I have. And like I said, I didn't know exactly what to expect. But that's, like I said, it's what I brought. And I'm open for more questions. I'm not sure what time it is. I think we have some more time.
Considering the line rate going into the paint shop and the line rate coming out of the paint shop, will you have more than one paint line going on in the shop? If you're going to slow down the system, lower temps, it takes more time to move the product through the shop.
Yep.
Will you have more than one paint line?
Yes, there will. The design right now is to have more than one paint line, and the question is, are you going to have like parallel processes through the new shop? And we will, for a number of reasons, for redundancy, because if this is down and that is down, and from a simulation standpoint, you'll guarantee throughput when you do those things. So yes, we will, and that's and also the paint shop, we will design it to it'll run more hours. This is what I refer to as capital utilization. You buy something, you need to run it like crazy, and so it means that we're not going to match the paint shop to the assembly line rate. We will have the paint shop running a little bit slower, and they'll run more hours to feed the assembly on one shift. Yeah.
As an add-on to that question, does that mean the manifold building is going to be a scheduling bank?
There will be a bank of parts in front of the GA, or the General Assembly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have one other thing that I want to, and we'll take the questions. Regarding this also, I got a question this morning, actually when we were talking with one of the group that was coming through the plant, in and around the Performance Build Center and the Z06 engines. As you may or may not know, we currently produce about 35% Z06 cars, and we produce, when I got here in September, about 40% of the total Z06 engines were hand-built in the Corvette Assembly Plant. The other ones came from Tonawanda. As of May 1st, all the Corvette LT4s are going to be hand-built in this facility in Bowling Green. And a few connections, because I have moved around, I know all the powertrain people, my boss, et cetera, et cetera. This is what we should do. We're working one shift. Let's work 2 shifts. We already have the equipment, man it up, and that's what we're going to do. So all LT4s hand-built in Bowling Green, starting, well, actually, it's officially next month, but we're already doing it. Yeah, so question right here.
Was there any further evidence of sinkholes right by the plant where you're building your new building?
The question is, did we find sinkholes when we were doing this? And the answer is yes. We did find 2 sinkholes. They weren't significant. And just as the case here, there's engineering, sound engineering to fill them up, basically. And that's what was done. And so they're innocuous now. We did surveys, and we didn't think there were any sinkholes. And then when you're, dink, 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 and you see a hole generated, then you got to address it. So it was a little bit of a surprise. Yeah.
The $2 million in solar energy, you plan on expanding that? Since I know the plant uses a little bit of energy.
We do use a little bit of energy. It's landlocked, though. It was an area that is, if you go around the ring road, around the front of the plant, it was an area, people that have been here for a long time, they refer to it as the old softball field, but it's kind of landlocked. So we put in physically as much as we could. When you look at the footprint of our 220 acres that we own, we used a lot for the new shop, and the space that we have for overflow, for model year changes, for car storage, etc., we really squeezed it. So I don't think that we would do anything more, but we've done as much as we could.
What about the roof? Can you put it on the roof?
Cars on the roof? Oh, solar on the roof?
Yeah.
I thought you said cars on the
No,
roof.
no,
It's
no.
like crazy. No. I hadn't thought about that, but I have a background with a lot of our projects. Putting stuff on the roof is, you can do that, but it gets to be expensive too, maintenance and et cetera, et cetera. Another question? One way back here.
I'm kind of curious, what kind of production numbers do you see per day I worked at Lake Orion, and ours would fluctuate quite a bit there. And
We-
I'm curious if, you know, in your production line, if the Corvette stays, if your numbers stay pretty constant.
Up to the point of really just the last few weeks, we have been running 170 cars a day since the start of the car. We've been running our maximum production, which is 5 days a week. And the limiting factor isn't what we could do in our plant. The limiting factor is what we designed in from a supply base. So the carbon fiber parts, et cetera, et cetera. And we've reduced our schedule just a little bit because this week, in fact, we're making more grand sports. And then we're going to be back, and then we're going to be out. We're making a batch. So we artificially reduced the schedule this week, and then we're going to go back. But we're around 160, 165. We see a little bit of a dip. Next week, the grand sport orders will open up, and then we're going to be into the next model year. So I think that right now we kind of have a phenomenon. We've been in the vehicle production, this vehicle, for a few years, and that's, I think, natural, but not a huge softening. Any other questions? Right here.
Do you have
Yep.
any
Oh, order.
anticipated
Yep.
plans for the existing paint shop in 2019?
The existing paint shop will clean it all up environmentally, and the plan right now is to idle it in place. So we'll basically, we'll take care that there's no liabilities there, and then we'll idle it. And that's what we have for a plan. No use for any of the space at this point.
I
Back here.
have two questions about quality. Number one, can you explain to us your quality measurements for the overall car, how they've changed over the past few years? And number two, I just bought it in 2016, and there was a 30-minute survey that I completed about the quality of my car. Does that information get translated back to the plant so you can make improvements?
Okay, so the two question was, let me make sure that I get this right. In the course of, let's just say C7, in the course of the C7, what kind of improvements have been made in the quality systems that help the car get better? First, that's a really complicated question because there's a lot of moving parts with a lot of people in the plant. But what we do know is that the metrics, we have JD Power, we have the survey that you took, which we see all of that. We have internal measurements, we call, it's like direct run rate, the efficiency of every station to get the job done correctly the first time. We have GCA, which is our global quality audit. We have a tremendous amount of systems, and all of these systems indicate that we continue to make improvements in the overall quality of the vehicle, and it's steady. There isn't like a huge stair step. There's no miracle foo-foo dust that we sprinkle on the car that makes it perfect. It's a lot of hard work, but the trends show that we're simply getting better. And the answer on what we're doing in the quality system to make that happen, I mean, that's a pretty long discussion. There's a lot of detail. Yeah, but we're getting better in all metrics. Anything else? Yep, one right here.
You briefly touched on the automation, advanced automation to go into paint assembly area.
Yeah.
Do you have any planned improvements in the automation for the GA plan?
Automation in the GA, or General Assembly. The answer is, generally speaking, no. We will put aids in GA, and when I talk there, it's about torque monitoring, which might be an example of quality improvements. If we see a problem with a specific fastener, we put torque monitoring where the line's interlocked, the bolt isn't where it should be, the line stops. That's what we need to do, and that's where we kind of draw the limit as it relates to the cost benefit of the investment required versus the benefit that we get. For the lower volume cars, it simply just doesn't make sense. Most of the time in all of our assembly plants, it kind of doesn't make sense, unless you're moving big, heavy stuff. Yeah.
Just to follow up to that, what about security concerns on automation?
So you mean like a virus?
Or outside, yeah.
Or outside, yeah, and that's the case where all of our systems now, we have controls engineers, they don't necessarily, but they could, from Michigan, they could access our systems. And let's just say we have some pretty intense firewalls, and if you would bring any device into our plant, a laptop specifically, anything with a USB port that could be used to, and we've had this in the company, we've learned this in the past. This is a service guy that comes in with his laptop, walks up to one of our controllers, plugs in and infects something. So we have a very intense program backup process where we're always, and they're automating this upload-download technology, where we're looking and we control every time anybody makes a control change to our equipment. We know when it happens, and if it's a safety-related issue, you need to get signatures before you can even get in to make a change. Because sometimes when you go make those changes, you can cause collateral problems, including a safety issue. And again, that's another pretty sophisticated question. But even earlier this year, we had to shut the plant down completely to tie in the solar array, which means every controller goes down to nothing. And because you're asking the question, you probably know what can happen when you bring things up. The answer is nothing happens, and you got a big problem. And we were very successful. We did that over a weekend. We came up and we were making cars Monday morning because we got a lot of people that do a lot of hard work. Every battery's where it needs to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yep, way back here.
Yeah. Speaking of making cars, there's at least 4 GM assembly plants that are down, supposedly due to supply chain problems from the Japanese earthquake.
Yep.
Will any of that affect the Bowling Green plant?
No, specifically, if you haven't heard, the earthquakes in Japan have affected some of the supply base. And while the company doesn't disclose what specific issues, because our competitors would love to have that information, because they, well, let's just say, use it against us in the business world, there's no threat right now to the Corvette. And as I stated, to others in the recent past, we've known about this part shortage not long after the earthquake, and it's really a part quality concern that we're slowing things down, so we're making sure that we don't cause a problem. And there's a concerted strategy in the company to take those parts, which will remain nameless, and put them into the products that will best benefit the needs of the company. And I would just say that this factory has a great need to the company. So if you ask why, it's like, all right, follow the money. Yeah, one back here.
Hey, Kai, and maybe this might be a question for Harlan too, but for the years we've been following General Motors and especially Corvette, the changes to paint. We've seen color end early, but I don't think we've ever seen the color begin early. And apparently that's what's going to happen with that one blue this year. Can you maybe touch on why you want to start a paint run earlier than the model year begins?
Harlan, that's probably for you.
Well, it's kind of like this. We're allowed kind of 3 color changes a year. So we did 2 when we started 16. So I think this is 2016 color, and we're down to 24%. They follow the rules.
So sometimes you get a glimpse of what the meetings might be like when the guy who wants to make the change and the guy who has to do the change. And so there are these guidelines which are agreed upon. We limit the amount of changes because it's a ton of work, just like we talked about. You make a change, it's a ton of work. It costs a lot of money, and we just don't do it without a good business plan. Yeah.
Is this paint process cost-effective for metal cars, and will this be implemented into other plants, or is it already there?
The equipment, the robots, the bells, or the application, these spinning little bells that mystify the paint, those will be very common. The controls architecture will be very common. The temperatures, the process specifically because of the material of the panels will be totally unique for the Corvette. So that's one of the challenges that we have in this process. It's not an invention what we have over here. We're taking some of that hardware and we're applying it, but we have to adapt the process to make sure that we can accommodate the unique materials that we really don't have in any other of our cars. We have aluminum parts, we have steel parts, we have different kinds of steel parts, but we don't have we have fascias on the front of a lot of our cars that are plastic, but we don't have near the challenge that we have with the Corvette. Yeah. Right here.
If there is such a thing as a typical workday for the plant manager, I'd love to know what it looks like, how he spends the time.
my typical work day, okay, I get up at about 4:30 every day. I take a shower. I'm at work about 5:15. I usually am checking my emails before I get to work. And then Nora, who you may have met, Nora Roper, the assistant plant manager, she's in, with plus or minus 5 or 10 minutes with myself. We usually have time every day. By design, I like to get to work a little bit early, although there's this nasty, city called Detroit that starts 1 hour before me, so they get a little bit of a head start. But I like to personally have about an hour or an hour and a half of no scheduled activity, so I can think a little bit and talk with Nora about things that we might need to do. Every day at 7 o'clock, we have an operational meeting with all of the superintendents and the union leadership are all invited. What happened yesterday? Were there any safety issues? What are we following up on? Where are there production issues? And then as the day goes on, we have a structured template day by day by day. Here are the different meetings, here are the different tasks, here's what you will be doing when. And it is not just get up and, as you can imagine, it's not a freestyle event. Manufacturing is very regimented. So every day at 12:30, we have our GCA audit, which is where we look at cars every day. The whole team comes and we look, and it's like we see this, we see that, we see that. The one thing that we saw yesterday, somebody's got to come back and tell us how they're going to make sure that never happens again. So we have a lot of different activities. So different days, different topics, HR, safety, quality, productivity, interacting with team members. Yesterday I was on the line working. That's kind of typical. It's fun. From here?
What do you think 2016 total production numbers will be?
2016 total productions, I would estimate that we will be between 38 and 40,000. Harlan, be close? You're checking your email? You're using a calculator. These guys from headquarters, they use all their calculators. They'll come back and say, about 38 to 40. Are you really checking? You'll have that tomorrow. Keep this headquarters guy, man. But we can get that back to you. Question over here? Yeah.
I have 2 questions. After cars are completed and they're sitting outside, have you ever had a problem with hail? And then the other question is, as union workers, how do they bid jobs to do certain things on the car? Or do they have to have background before they take that job?
So the first question is, have we ever had, and I'll expand it to not just hail, but like a snow, whatever. Snow necessarily wouldn't damage a car, but it really causes us a problem because we don't have indoor loading and the cars are all covered, so we can't move them. So we've had some significant snow events. They kind of come and they, I'm from Michigan, right? 4 inches of snow here is like 4 feet in Michigan. And my kids were out of school for a week down here for like 6 or 7 inches of snow, and in Michigan it would have been, all right, let's go. It would have been minor. But anyway, back to the Corvette. So to my knowledge, I don't know if we've had a hail event. We do have insurance, and in some cases we're self-insured. So we don't pay for the big policy. If it's a big enough company, we would pay for the damage ourselves. And then the second question that you have is regard to how do people get jobs in the plant. The contract that we have gives individuals right up to 2 times a year. They can kind of put in for a job, and then once they, we limit that to limit movement of individuals. Once they kind of have made it to that job, they have to prove before they take over the job that they have met certain, and I always start with safety. You guys want to start with quality. I want to make sure my people go home safe. We need to know that they can do the job very safe, and they have the ability to comply to all of the quality standards, and they understand what they need to do. And again, it's not freestyle. You can go to any one of our job stations, and there's a written job instruction or job element sheet, JES, that will describe exactly what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, in what sequence, and what the standards are. And if they come in and they can demonstrate that, they can get what we refer to as a Harvey ball, which is like a 25% qualification. And then as they move through, they can eventually get all 4 quadrants filled up, which means they have the ability not only to do the job with some supervision, do the job independently, they can teach the job. And that's what the team leaders do. So we keep track, and we want individuals to know their job up to a high level, and we want them to know multiple jobs within the team. And by doing that, there's a lot of advantages, and it pushes people to learn more and do more. A lot of ergonomic advantages also helps people's body. Okay.
The new plant, paint facility you're building, will that be any position or will it focus at the existing paint shop just to go over?
One more time.
Will you be adding any new positions with the new paint facility?
New physicians. Positions. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. We will add some people during the transition because we'll have to operate both facilities for a period of time. Because it's not as easy as just picking up and moving it, and we're not putting in a huge amount of automation that's going to offset everything that we do. It's already pretty well automated with the application of the robot, the paint in the robot. But it's not a huge increase in employment levels with the new paint shop once we get over the transition out of the old and then everything into the new. Yeah.
During the transition, will there be 2018 Corvettes painted in both shops?
There will be 2018 Corvettes painted in both shops. If it's a legacy color, meaning a 2017 color, we'll continue making those in the old shop. All the new colors start in the new shop, and then we transition the old colors over. So there'll be a transition. It's what we have to do. We can only do so much. Yeah. Question? Yep. Right in the middle there?
Yeah, I'm impressed that you were actually out on the line yesterday.
Did you see me out there?
No,
Oh, okay.
but how often do you get to do that? And what area do you decide to work in that day? And for how long? Were you there for like an hour?
I was there for like 4 or 5 minutes is all. I threw out the bobber and you guys bid on it. So working the line.
One photo op right now.
Yeah, I was like, smile. Look at me. It's the second time I've done that here. And I have again, because of my background, I like to go do that. It wasn't just for me. We have, because of this event, we have engineers from Michigan who come down and we set up these events, of which I participated. Some of my staff in the plant participated, and engineers that are living in an environment that they maybe don't get a chance to physically see what they do and how it impacts our operation, and we don't necessarily get to see some of the challenges that they have. So it's an opportunity to come down, and we call it Work the Line. It's for the most part the day. Yesterday I started out at 5:45. Here's the schedule. The shift starts at 6:12. I worked up until first break with one individual. I almost got to, I'll tell you, at the end of that first shift, I couldn't do the job. James, he was like, you're doing pretty good, but not quite.
No Harvey ball for you.
No Harvey ball. I didn't even get close to that. And then we had our break, the normal scheduled plant break, and then did the same thing in the before lunch. And then we had a little bit of lunch. I couldn't do the third session, would have been like after lunch and before the afternoon break, but most of the other people did. I think it's great, and you learn, like I said, you find out what the challenges that people have. I mean, I have a chance to tell individuals what challenges I have. I mean, it's not easy. Yeah, and the second part about the life in the day of a plant manager, usually I'm home by about 7, so it's a long day. Making time to go do that is precious, in my opinion. Okay, anything else? Who wants to leave? I'm good to stay, but if you guys have any questions. One more question here.
On your last overhead slide, the aerial slide, I saw the area that looked like it's supposed to be, what do you call that, in between the
manifold.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
It looked
that's,
like it was done, yeah, right there. It
Yep.
looks like there's still a lot of steel to put up in
Well, this was on the 13th, and now all of that steel is in place.
Okay.
So it's pretty much connected now. It's just a few weeks old.
And the follow-up question is, when will the building be buttoned up and you'll be able to start actually putting equipment in?
Well, some of the equipment is going on the roof as we speak. You can see some of the makeup air units and other things.
That's building, yeah, that's building equipment, but I'm talking about
The process equipment,
Yeah.
we're a few months away from that.
Exactly.
We're a few months away from that because, you know, like drying in or however you would describe it. We're a few months away from getting the process equipment in. Yeah. Okay? Any other questions? Then we'll call it a